Henya Rosner Basar of Svi Hirsch, and in memory of family members destroyed in the Holocaust, Rav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sora Bas Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Adidya Bas Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam Bas Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel Bas Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch, and Shmuel ben Rav Tzvi Hirsch.
A question before you start. I want your advice. I have a book here that somebody donated, written by Mordechai Kaplan. You know Mordechai Kaplan?
Yeah.
It was the founder of
the
Reconstruction movement. Right. Should I throw it in the garbage?
Or burn? No, you can't put it in Shemesh. You have to put it in the garbage. There's probably other Rappi courses in here. I don't know. All right. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Peres, Sarah Tova, Bas Yisrael Dove. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Lamine, in memory of Ramona Rachel Mata Bas Asher. Friends of Nina Moinister, Nechama Asna Bas Yitzchak Aaron. Friends of Steve Vigder, Simcha Melech ben Meir Lev Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece, Leah Bracha. David and Mindel Cheslow, in memory of his father, Moshe ben Reuven Mordechai. Susan and Reuven Lev Podolsky, in memory of her father, Simcha Bunim ben Yeshua, and her mother, Chaya Bas Rav Avram Dov. Haran and Mel Haller, in memory of her father, Yosef Eliezer ben Tzvi Hirsch. B. Pizer, in memory of her father, Yisachar Dov ben Shmuel. Stanley Presser, in memory of his wife, Chayilea Bas Zeb HaKayin. And the children and grandchildren of Vicky and Larry Fish in their honor. Week of Learning, Judith and Michael Peretsky, in memory of her mother. And that's it.
Nothing today, 26.
No 26. The last one I had was a 25th. Okay, so there are no 26. If you want to give me 75 bucks, 50 bucks, I'll call you out.
Do you take counter for money?
I take anything you want to give me. All right. So when last we met, we asked the burning question, pun intended, Heichi Dami Sris Chama, what constitutes literally a sun sris, or heat sris, but it means someone born like that. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar Rav Yochanan, turn the page. Kol shelo roa sha'a chas kisherusai. Someone who never was able to get an erection or ejaculate from birth. Never had a single moment where he was functional. Okay, so Mino Yadina, how do we know? What's the test for a Sris Chama? So the Gemara says, Amar Abaya, Kol Shematul Mayim Vienna Oise Kipa. When most of us urinate, the urine comes out in a sufficient stream to, if you aim a little high, to make an arch. You know, a parabolic pee. But if you're a Sris Chama, then you're a dribbler. You do not have this arch. So from now on, if you want for everybody to not be concerned, stand back from the urinal. All right, Ad Khan. I'll talk to me next year.
Next year?
Mimai have it. How does a baby in utero turn out to be a srischama? What's the problem with what happened that the kid became a srischama? The afya ime b'tahara. His mother lit the oven and heated up the oven to put bread in at exactly noon. Now, the Rashi explains here that between the heat of the sun and the heat of emanating from the oven, the baby gets damaged, okay? The Shasya Shir mark. Okay, I'm sorry, and I left that a word. The Shasya, and she also, to cool down, drinks Shkira Marka. She drinks Marka beer. So over here, Rashi says he doesn't. Very short little Rashi. He says either Marka means beer diluted with water, or it means extra potent high alcohol beer. So it's one or the other. So if your wife is baking bread at high noon, to use your judgment vis-a-vis what kind of beer she can drink.
Don't drink and bake at the same time.
Don't drink and bake at the same time. Amar Rav Yosef, Haina Deshmaina La'ami. So now I understand what Ami was saying, the Aimer, when he said, Kol Hashemime Imo, anybody who's in his mother's room, Lokhui, that's where things can go wrong. Okay, Velo Yadana my Ninhu, and until now I didn't understand what he was talking about. But now that I learned that baking bread and drinking beer at high noon when you're pregnant has a deleterious effect on the fetus, now I know what he was talking about.
Ingredients in beer are the same as
And ingredients in bread, that is correct. That is absolutely correct. It's just an amount of liquid. All right, Ad Khan. And there's also a machlaikas among the forensic archaeologists of which came first. Okay, I'm on the beer side. Okay. So Beleka Shem Hevri B'tayim. So who says that this guy was a Sris Chama every day of his whole life? Maybe there was a period in which he was functional between his birth and today when he wants to get married, right? So we say, Kevan dischiloso v'sofo lachui. Since we know at the beginning of his life he was dysfunctional, he couldn't pee in an arch, and we know now he's dysfunctional, we assume he was always dysfunctional and lo chashinan. We're not concerned that maybe he had a period of healthiness in the interim. Okay, so Macy Rav Murray doesn't like that, and he says no. We do have a concern about periodic functionality. Rabbi Chanina bar Antigonus Aimer, because Rabbi Chanina bar Antigonus explains, Baitinoiso Shlolosh Pa'amim Bitoch Shmoinim Yom. We take an 80-day period and we check him out at the beginning.
The Bechor. What this is talking about, the Bechor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're talking about an animal that may or may not have a mum. So you have a bechor. You know the rule is that if it's a healthy, unblemished animal, it goes to the kohen. If it's not, the guy can keep it. So if it looks like there's something wrong with the little calf's eye, so you look at it now. You look at it circa, it doesn't say exactly, but circa 40 days from now. And you look at it again 80 days from now. And if the wound is still there, you assume it was a permanent wound and that and that's the end of that. So we make an analogy to people that with regard to this animal, we are concerned that maybe it did not have a mum in the middle. That's why you have to check in the middle. So this is brought as a refutation to the assumption if the guy was and is, then you don't worry about what might have been. Okay? So lachad ever chashin. And so the answer to that is we are concerned about the genitalia as maybe they could be okay, but lechule gufa lo chashinan. Like if you're talking about the eye, we would be concerned that maybe it healed and he got pink eye again. But with regard to the entirety of a human being, we do not say that he goes up and down in his health levels. And apparently, the Gemara assumes that infertility or impotence is an all-body issue. All right? Rabbi Elazar Aimer Aloki. If you remember in the Mishnah, Rabbi Elazar introduced his disagreement with the Tanakama and with Rabbi Akiva by using the words low-key, that ain't so. Okay? So what he was saying is that this Sris Chama does perform chalitza, and if he dies, chalitza is performed on his wife, whereas a Sris Adam is fakert, they do not, neither he nor his widow. Okay, Raminu, I'll challenge that with a brisa of different, actually another Mishnah. Ben Esrim Shana, v'lo hevi shtei Cyrus. A person dies, and his sibling is 20 years old, and the sibling, the surviving brother, has not shown the simonim of adulthood. In other words, he has no pubic hair. V'aviu raya shahu ben esrim. So we now go to City Hall and look up his birth certificate, because maybe he's only 19 and 300 days. We have to check that he is literally at least 20 years old. Okay, v'hu and that would mean that he is halachically a sris, v'lo chayletz v'lo miyavim. And according to this Mishnah, since he's a sris, the girl does not have to do chalitza, and he is not permitted to do yibum. This argues with our Mishnah, right? Where Rabbi Akiva said yes. Okay. So Ben Esrim Velohe V'Yishtei Cyrus. We're talking here about somebody who's 20 years old. Okay, now what about the woman? Okay, so if you have a wife who is an islandess, if a man has a wife who has an islandess and he dies, do they do chalitza with her or yibum with her?
How did she ever get married to begin with?
What? He married her when she was 9 years old. They had no idea. Right? And if you have other children with another wife, you can marry an islandess. Okay? So in any event, so again, we check her birth certificate to see is she genuinely at least 20 years old, the islandess, and that would be her proof that she's an islandess. Okay? V'lo choletzes, v'lo yisyavemes. And according to this other Mishnah, no chalitza and no yibum. She's free to go about her business with as the Gemara refers to it in the shuk. She can marry anybody she wants who will have a skinny, breastless lady. Divrei Beis Hillel. So Beis Hillel is the school of thought that you have to be 20. Beis Shammai Yomrim Zev B'nei Shmona Esrei. Doesn't matter a boy, doesn't matter a girl. If they're not mature by 18, it ain't gonna happen, according to Beis Shammai. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer, that's our person in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer, Aimer, Hazacher Kedivrei Beis Hillel. We give a boy till age 20. Unekeva b'divrei Beis Shammai, but with a girl, 18 is the determining factor, according to him. Why? Girls younger? Mipnei shaha'isha mahares lava lifnei ha'ish. Because girls mature younger than boys do at normal puberty, and we carry that forward, that girls will not mature if they haven't done so by 18. So now we have a machlokes. Rebbe Eliezer in the Mishnah says they do, and here it says they don't. So Omar Rami Bar Dikule had interesting names in those days. Omar Shmuel Chazer Bo Rebbe Eliezer. So Rebbe Eliezer changed his mind. So now we have to know which statement did he change? Did he change no they don't and agree no they don't, or did he change yes they do? And this, you understand what I'm saying? You look.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking at. You're following me? Okay. Okay, so Iboilahu, they asked the Shaila, Mahai Hudderbe, which opinion did he retract? So they say, Toshma, let's look at another brisa, and maybe that will clarify. The Sanya, we have another brisa, Rebbe Eliezer, Srischama Chayletz V'Chayletzin Li Ishtay. They do chalitza on a Srischama, because Sheken b'minan mis Rafin Alexandria shel Mitzrim. Apparently, there's a doctor in Alexandria, Egypt, who knows how to clear blockage from the vas deferens, whatever it is, to restore potency to an impotent person who's born that way. Okay, so there's a urological surgeon in Alexandria that can deal with these issues, and therefore it's healable, and therefore he does do chalitza if it's a widow, or if he is the srischama, he can do yibum or chalitza with the widow. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer, Aimer li'olam lo haderbe. Rabbi Lazar, who is an Amira, says the truth of the matter is that Rabbi Eliezer never backed down. Okay, and he does say that in the Mishnah, Srischama can do Yibum, and he does say in the Brisa he can't. V'chi tanan hahi la'oinshin. But in the Brisa, where he talks about 18 for girls and 20 for boys, they're never going to improve. What he's not talking about whether you do chalitza or not. He's talking about a totally different issue. The issue is as follows. When a boy is 13, he starts putting on tefillin. But min ha-Torah, he only puts on tefillin if he is genuinely mature. So what happens if 2 days when he was 14, if he didn't put on tefillin, he slept late? So we wait till age 20. Now, he ate challah, whatever it is. He might have to bring a chatas, or he might have to bring an asham. So it's toloi, we hold on, we don't bring it yet. And when he's 20 years old, if he still doesn't have pubic hair, we say whatever he did wrong before, he was not chayiv on, because he wasn't yet an adult. and therefore we say you're off the hook on your chatas. That's what he was talking about. He wasn't talking about, so it's not a contradiction at all. It's two separate dinim based on age, but it's not, or based on physical condition, but they're not related necessarily. The chitanan hula einshin, there all he's talking about is whether he's chayav the oynesh for a violation when he was theoretically adult, but not really. Itmar. Now we're going to talk about what a sris is and how and what the deal is. Okay, Itmar, we say like this. Achal chelev ben shtem esrei liam echad ad ben shmeina esrei. Now, the problem with the Gemara here is the discussion. If you look at the diktuk of the next memra, the discussion is talking about a male. But if you look at the facts, it's talking about a female because she's 12 in a day. She's an adult. A boy is not an adult. And it goes to 18, which is okay. So we're going to translate it as if it's a girl, but if you like, you can translate it as if it's a boy because there's a whole tumult over this.
Transgender.
What?
Maybe it's transgender.
Oh, okay. But then they can't use the boys' bathroom. All right. Itmar. Achol chelev mi ben shtayim esrei liam echad ad ben shmona esrei. An individual, I think it's a girl, 8 chelev between the ages of maturity for normal people and age 18. V'noldo bo simone sris. And at 18, this person is determined to be a sris. Okay, again, it uses the masculine, although it should probably say ailanis. The achar mikan hevi shtei sairos. But all of a sudden, somewhere in the, and if it's a girl between 18 and 20, and if it's a boy in the 20s, all of a sudden he has this developmental spurt and he grows pubic hair and his voice deepens and all the things for a boy, or she grows pubic hair and breasts and her voice stays undeepening, etc. So what is the deal? Rav Omer Nases Ris Lemafreya. We say that retroactively, because this person hit the 18 or 20 mark, they were considered to be a sris all that time and not chayiv. Shmuel Omer Kotten he be oisa. I'm sorry, he is chayiv because now he's no longer a sris. But Shmuel Omer Kotten hoye be oisa sha'a. No, when he ate or she ate the chelev, it was still a kid. The fact that now in the 20s becomes an adult, but it was a kid. A kid is a kid. You don't punish children. Okay, Maskifle Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef argues with this, with Rav. Okay, Eilanis L'Rebbe Meir Yehe Lo Knas. What if a little girl is raped? There is the Torah gives a penalty, you pay a kanas. Now, the Torah uses the word na'ara for the time frame, for the word naira is used in that pasuk. If a naira is raped, we translate it little girl. But what it really means, up till 12, she's a katana. From 12 to 12 and a half, she's a naira. And from 12 and a half on, she's a bogeres. So, mistama, if you rape a little girl, an 8-year-old, one might read the pasuk as saying there's no kanas. And if you rape a girl who's 12 years, 6 months and a day, one might also read the pasuk as there's no kanas. So Rav Yosef says, according to Rav, who on one hand said that if retroactively she is an adult, he also says, Eilinus l'Rav Meir, Yehei lo knas. An Eilinus who never goes from a katana to a naira to a bogeres is qualified to collect the knas if she's raped at 15 or 16. So that's epis. Why does Rav Meir, and according to Rav, why does Rav Meir say here that she should not get the collect? Where if she's an islandess, then she's always a child, right? So Amalei Abaya answers like this. Make ketanusa yotzisa lebeger. Since the word naira implies the time frame in which she is transitioning from having no simone of puberty to where she's a bogeres and she has all the normal simonim of puberty, breasts and body hair, etc., etc. But an islandess never becomes a naira. She stays a little girl, so to speak. So that's why she's never a naira. She can't collect the fine. That would be the argument. So Omerle, call he hani mili mi ailosa. Yes, amru mishmei. When you say this over again, please say it in my name. In other words, I agree with you. Desanya, because we have a brisa elsewhere. Ein sris nidan keben srora moira. A sris can never be punished by death if he's a ben srora moira, because lefisha ein ben srora moira nidan ella b'chasimas zaken hatachton. A boy cannot be judged as a ben srora moira unless he has a healthy pubic hair growth. They call it here the lower beard. Okay? V'ein ailonis nidainis kanaira hamaorasa. And we cannot say an islandess is considered as betrothed, a naira who's betrothed, where then they would be put to death. Because she never is a naira, she transitions from childhood to begeres without going through the naira phase. Omer Rebbe Abuhu, Simone Sris va'ailonis oben shmein. What? We're changing the top. The halacha holds that a fetus, a baby in utero, if it's born in the 7th month, is considered an early healthy baby. If it's born in the 9th month, it's considered a healthy, normal baby. If it's born in the 8th month, that's a premature baby and it will most likely not survive. That's the assumption. So, what happens now? So, if you're an 8th month baby, that means you were born early and you did not have the normal developmental features of a full-term baby. So, if there's some miracle occurs and that baby survives into adulthood, do we say that since this is an early baby and it's delayed developmentally, we wait until 20, even for a girl, we hold base hillel in all cases to determine if it's a sris or a islandess.
Do we give an 8-month baby a bris in the normal time?
No, we'll see in a minute.
Okay.
An 8-month baby is not considered a human being.
Okay.
I mean, Don't look at me.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So, ein eisen behem ma'aser ad shehu ben esrim. We do not make a judgment of whether such an individual is a Swiss or an islandess until they passed 20. Okay? Oben shmona mi kachaye. But Bird just explained that an 8-month-old baby doesn't survive. So how could this baby have become 20 years old? V'hasanya, we have a brisa to prove it. Ben shmona hare koga even. An 8-month-old baby is not even considered a human being. It's like a stone, a rock. But Aiser letaltalo. And if it's Shabbos, you're not allowed to even move that baby. You can't pick it up. You can't rock it. You can't burp it. You can't help it, cuddle it. You can't do anything with that baby. You got to let it lie there. So, aval, the Torah cuts them a little slack. Imo sheicha olav umenikusoi. The mother, without touching the baby, can wiggle herself, lower herself into a position where the baby can get at her bosom and nurse. We don't require her not to be involved with the baby at all. We do let her nurse the baby, mipnei hasakana, because going without food for 25 hours will be dangerous. So there's a stira.
It's dangerous to her, too.
No, it's also, the Gemara Rashi says that. Rashi says that it's dangerous for the baby, but what we're really talking about is if milk builds up in her breast. They didn't have breast pumps.
Right.
So they used this stone to relieve the pressure on her. Okay, so Hachabamaya Skinan. So what are we talking about? Keshagamru Hasimonov. What we're talking about is the simonim we use in terms of checking out the baby to make a determination, is it a 7, an 8, or a 9-month-old baby? Ezahu ben Shmaina, what are the defining characteristics of an 8-month baby? Kol shelo kulo lo chadashav, a baby that is not fully developed in the womb. Rebbe says, Simonim mochichin olav. The simonim, that somebody who knows what he's talking about, a midwife or a doctor, can tell by looking at the baby whether it's going to survive or not. Okay? Sa'iro v'tzefarov shelo gamru. If the baby is not growing natural hair. Now, there is a type of hair that babies often have, the very dark, thick hair that falls away because that's from the mother's hormones. But then the baby grows the fine baby hair. If this infant does not do that, or if the infant doesn't have developed fingernails that actually grow, that the mother has to bite them or clip them, those are simonim that it's an 8-month baby. Okay? Taimala de Gamru, the rationale that the baby is an 8-month baby and will not survive is because it hasn't met these normal mileposts of developing hair follicles and nails that grow. Okay? Ha-gamru. But if the baby does grow hair and does have fingernails that continue to grow, Amrinan Hare ben Shivahu, we say that this is not an 8-month baby. It's really a 7-month baby. The Ishtave who the Ishtave. And the baby liked being in the womb. So it hung out longer in the womb than it would have been natural for it to do so. So now we have on the table the concept that babies can linger in utero if they ain't interested in appearing. We had the other day a baby stuck his head out, says, I don't like what I see, and goes back in. Now we're going to have a baby that hangs out in the utero for extra 3 months. Okay? Elahada Avid Rava Tosofa Uvda. There was an actual Maisa Shahoya where a fellow named Rava Tosofa was an Av Bezdin. Be'isha Shahoylech Baila Lamedinas Hayam Ve'ish Tahwe Ad Tresar Yarche Shosa. She comes to the Bezdin and she says, I had sex with my husband the day before he left. He's been gone for a full year and the baby just came out. I want you to paskin that my husband is the father of this baby. The baby hung out in the womb extra long time, and I didn't fool around with anybody. It's not a mamzer. That's what she asked the Bezdin to do. Va'aksharei. And the Bezdin paskin, he's a kosher kid. He's not a mamzer. So come on. So what did this Rava Tosafah, what authority did he cite to say babies hang out in the womb longer than they're supposed to be there? Karebi, the Omar Mishtache. So he held like Rebbe, who we just learned, said that an 8-month baby that can grow hair is really a lingering 7th-month baby. So Kavan, Deika, Rabban, okay, now you're going to ask, well, how can he paskin like a das yachid? Okay, Rebbe's a heavy hitter, but he's a one-man thing. You can't paskin a kid's not a mamzer based on a one-man's opinion. Kaven de Ike Reb Shimon ben Gamliel de Omer Mishtahe. Since Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel also agrees babies can linger, Karabim Avad. There was a rove, there were more than one, and he could paskin like them. The Sanya we have, and how do you know Rabbi Shimon holds like that? The Sanya, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Aimer, Kol, Shahaya, Shloishim, Yom, Ba'adam, Eina, Nefel. Any baby, this is Bob's question earlier, any baby that manages to survive for 30 days, we retroactively re-examine and say he was not a nafel. So in other words, if the baby can live for 30 days, then it was a late 7-month baby. Definitionally, it was not an 8-month baby. So Rabban Gamliel agrees with Rebbe.
We give it immediately or wait?
I don't know.
Days?
I don't know. I would assume we wait, but I don't know for sure. Okay, I will report in on Sunday. I will check. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Okay, so now we're going to deal with people are walking around all the time. Who's a stress and who's a bari?
You ask that all the time to people.
Yeah, I mean, I Bob, what's doing? Do you pee in the arch? Right? Ezahu sris chama. What's a sris chama? Kol shehu ben esrim v'lo hevi shtei Cyrus, somebody who by 20 has not produced pubic hair, v'yafilu hevi li'acher mikan, harehu kesris v'chol dvara. 21, he's still a stress in every regard, meaning with regard to can he marry, with regard can he do yibum, with regard to is he chayav chat, all of the halachic implications.
Yeah, the word sris chama is a hot sris.
Yeah. A haisis. Okay. The Elohim Simonov. This is how you know that somebody walking around is a sris chama. Kol she'ein lo zoken. He does not have facial hair. V'sarav lakui. and the hair he does have on his head is very fine and very soft. Okay? Ubesoro machalik, and he has baby soft flesh. Now, you pat a baby's bottom and it's like silky soft. So if this fellow has hands, his arms, his face are silky soft, that's a simon. Okay? Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Yair, another simon, Kol she'en maim of mile l'resichus. If when one urinates, say on a rock or some into the toilet as well, normal urine produces bubbles. If the sris's urine is just pure water and it doesn't get bubbly, that's another sign of srishood. Okay? V'yeshomrim, others add, kol hamatil mayim v'yosef kippah. People who pee in a dribble, they don't form an arch when they pee. V'yeshomrim, others add, kol shichras zaro daiche. Someone whose semen is watery, it's not viscous. Okay, v'yeshomrim, others say, kol she'ein mei raglav machamitzin. If you pee in a bucket and you leave the bucket in the corner for a week or so, the urine will get more and more putrid and more odorous. But if you do this with a sris, his urine is the same a week later as it was the minute he urinated. Okay, that's another simon according to some. Others, acherim aimrim, kol sheroichetz b'moisa geshamim ve'en basro maila hevel. When you breathe in the winter, the mist, the moisture in the air, your body warms it and it forms like a mist when you exhale. Similarly, the Gemara is saying, if you go to the Arizal's mikveh, which is very, very cold in the middle of the winter, when you come out, the moisture because of the warmth of your body will start evaporating and there'll be a visible mist. The Sris Chama does not generate enough body heat to cause the water from the cold mikveh to mist up, according to others. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Aimer, kol shekoilo lakui. Someone that still has a high-pitched voice, voice never deepened. V'ein nokir ben ish leisha. And if you're talking to such a person on the phone, you don't know if it's a male or a female, right? The Ezohi islanders. Okay, so now we just had a list of simonim. So, Bob, yeah, yeah, okay. All right. So, Ezohu islanders. What's an islanders? Kol shehi ben esrim v'lo hevi shtei syros. She's 20, so we paskin like face Hillel, and she has no pubic hair. Okay, v'afilu hevi la'acher kamikan, even if later on she develops pubic hair, harehi ba'islandus v'chol devara echo. She is completely an islandess in every single regard, with regard to every halacha. The Elohim Shimoine, what are the identifying signs of an islandess? Kol she'et lo dadim, she does not have breasts. Miskasha b'shas hatashmish, she has difficulty having intercourse, it's painful for her. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, kol she'ein lo shipule Mayim Kinashim. She does not have a figure 8 figure. In other words, if you look at a woman, their body curves in and curves out. An islandess is straight, has a straight figure. She does not have the necessary bulges that a woman has. Literally, her abdomen doesn't bulge. That's what it means. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Aimer kol shekoila alve. She has a deeper voice than women normally do. Vienna nicheres ben isha ben isha ben isha leish. And when you talk to her on the telephone, you can't tell if she's a male or a female. Okay. Now, that's the list. Itmar. Simone Sris, when it comes to this list of possible simonim, Rav Huna Aimer Ad Shehu Kulam, you have to have, it says Kulam, but it means you have to have several of these simonim. Okay? Rabbi Yochanan Aimer Afilu Biechad Mehem, even if he has one simon in addition to the lack of pubic hair. What, Mel?
No.
You're right?
Yeah.
Heichi the heavy Cyrus Bizakon. Now, what if he does have facial hair? Kula alma lo plige di anshahu kulan. Facial hair is a unique simon that if your possible sris has regular, normal facial hair, then he has to tick off all the other boxes on the list before you can determine he's a sris. Okay? Keep pligi. So where does Rav Huna disagree? Okay? Mishaloi hevi, where facial hairs lack is one of the simonim the person has, but he may not have a squeaky voice, or he may pee in an ark, whatever it is. So that's where they have a machlaikas. Does he need the little more, but a bunch of them? Elahada Amar lahu Rava bar Avua l'Rabbanan. But now, Rava bar Avua said to the Rabbanan, and this is a story. Rab Nachman wanted to get engaged. And his potential father-in-law, apparently he had a high voice. So his potential father-in-law was concerned about whether he can let his daughter marry this guy. He might be a srischama. So he says to the rabbis, go to the mikveh and see what happens when Rab Nachman goes to the mikveh. I know the Rav Nachman. Check out with Rav Nachman. If his body is hot enough to generate mist when he comes out of the bitter cold mikveh, I'll let my daughter marry him. Come on. So who is he in accords with? Meaning, he's saying if he does have a hot body, and he has missed, I'll let my daughter marry him, meaning he agrees that missing even one simon is fine. The guy's not a sris. So who does he agree with? Come on, to Rav Huna. Lo, we're not saying it was a Rav Huna case, because although Rav Nachman had a high squeaky voice, he did have a full beard. Rav Nachman, siche Dikna Hariale. He had spikes of hair in his beard. You know how some people's beard have 2 points, one on each side of his chin. So this is how Rav Nachman had a nice pointy beard, and therefore he wasn't a sris, and therefore if lacking any one simon, and they thought it more discreet to watch them come out of the mikveh than to watch him pee. All right. Hasris lo chayleitz v'lo miyavim v'chein ailonis. The Mishnah, we had an opinion in the Mishnah that a sris does not perform chalitza, nor does his widow perform chalitza. Similarly, an islandess who's a widow does not have to do chalitza. She can go off on her own. Katanai Sris Dumil Islandus. So from that phrase in the Mishnah, we make the assumption that the rules for a Swiss and the rules for an islandess are identical. Ma islandess b'dei shemayim. There's no such thing as a girl having a car crash and not maturing. There is such a thing as a man having a car crash and having his aver severed. Okay? So my islandess b'dei shemayim, just as an islandess was born with this hormonal deficiency and never matures, af sris b'dei shemayim, the sris referred to in the Mishnah is someone who was born that way, not someone who had circumstances later in life that he had crushed testicles or a severed aver. Okay, v'sasma Rabbi Akiva. So the stam Mishnah, the stam portion, the anonymous portion of the Mishnah, has to be what Rabbi in agreement, or Rabbi Akiva himself, the Omer, because Rabbi Akiva says, "B'nei Adam ein." If he had an accident during his lifetime that caused him to be a Sris Adam, he can do chalitza, and his wife does require chalitza. B'dei shemayim lo, but if he was born like that, then his wife does not have to do chalitza, and he is not qualified to do chalitza. That was Rabbi Akiva, and we'll pick up from the last line here tomorrow. Okay, so I want you guys to line up by the urinal. I want to check you out.
You're officially in charge of them?
My daughter was born 10 weeks early. She was fully developed, but she spent 5-6 weeks in an incubator because she was underweight.
The circumstances today are
Oh,
different.
altogether different.
I mean, now they are saving babies that are less than a pound.
I saw baby. What the
You
baby?
hold it in the palm of your hand.
The buttocks was even fully.
Right. Unbelievable.
Okay, sure.
But Bli Neder, I'll check on your kasha.
If they do it immediately or they
I will. I understand the kasha.
That's a local boil.
They wait. I'll call a posek.
For Bob especially.
I have a posek in the family,
Oh,
so I can always ask these questions.
morning juice. That's juice, you know.
Could have switched me a guy, buddy.
Mr. Kipperman, good to see you.
Just.
You were away for a couple weeks, huh? You okay? Under the weather? Full recovery.
Thank you very much. Thank you. What if I got it again?
Okay, Skye,
Hey,
how are you doing?
good.